are going to start this next mixed media project. We are actually going to be using an old book, and we're going to be cannibalizing the book and using pretty much everything that's in the book. So I'm going to show you step by step what we are planning to do. So you can follow the video if you want, or just kind of do it on your own. Okay, so what I did is I took an old book. I started off with a book that was just an art book that I used. You can see that this is the back part of the book, and it's important that you use your X-Acto knife to take parts of the book off, and I'm going to show you with this book that I'm using here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take an old book. In this case, this book here is just a book that somebody gave me. It's not really in good condition. It's really moldy. And so I'm going to use the pages. In some respect, I'll probably be using some pages as clip art. But what I'm going to do also is use the pages for actual, things that I'm going to be collaging on. Because you'll find that any old book, it's made out of paper that's really strong. So you can paint over it, you can collage over it, and sometimes the book actually is already yellowed, so that's kind of a good thing too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this X-Acto knife, and I'm going to start by just pressing on the binding, and you might find that the book just kind of falls apart by itself, and you won't need the X-Acto knife to do the rest of it. But I'm just going to lay the papers aside. You can see that there's some really interesting collage pictures like this, some really interesting photos that I might cut and use in other collages, or I might actually paint over this and leave some of this showing. So I'm not really sure what I'll do with that, but what I want you to do is just take your book and start cutting it apart. So if you cut the binding, you'll see that the pages just kind of fall out by themselves. And so you might, you find that there's something that's still tied in there, and you just cut with your X-Acto knife. And this is a way to really use the whole book. You don't want to really tear the pages if you can help it, because these are going to be pages that you use to actually do your art on. And it's really wonderful because you can actually use this for art paper and either collage over it or use it for mixed media. You can bind it together and make a journal page. We might do that later. But for now, we're just taking the book apart. And so that's what I want you to do first, is take your book, choose an old book, a book that you don't mind cannibalizing, and just start, okay? So then you're going to go on the other side, which is the the back part, and again take your X-Acto knife and cut the binding in the middle, and you'll again see the pages just kind of fall out by themselves. And if you want to use the actual paper in here as a journal, then leave it the way it is. But in this case, we're not going to do that today. So what you do is take the pages out of this particular project. But I have actually used the book itself as a journal, and gessoed on it for painted over it. And so that's what you can do too if you want to. Okay. So you'll see that you've got pages that you can use, and if the book is really, old and damaged, you'll even see some really cool stains that you might want to use in some of your collage material as well. So that's an example. And then what I did also is I actually cut the whole entire book apart. Now this can be a surface for another mixed media piece, and you can either use this part here and show some of this behind it or underneath, or you can just gesso over the whole thing and use it as a surface for collage or painting. This is actually what I used when I did my first project when we did the tissue paper. I used this as the surface to do the tissue paper project. Okay? Okay, the next thing I'm doing is I'm preparing my collage material, and what I'm doing here is I'm staining some of my collage material. This is like a piece of tissue paper, and there's some pages from a dictionary, and a piece of something that looks like lace, but really it isn't. It's actually cotton, but it looks like lace. I might use that. And also this is the lace. So I'm staining it because I want it to look aged. Because I'm kind of going towards almost like a Victorian, I think a Victorian collage mixed media piece. And so I want this to look very, very aged. Now, instead of watercolor, which this is watered down, like a little bit of watered down watercolor. It comes in a bottle, but anyway, you don't have to use this. You can actually use very strong tea or very strong coffee to do your staining. Be sure though that you kind of soak it overnight, so it really takes over takes the color. But you can use almost anything to stain your papers. If you don't want to do like this color here, you can actually use the different color, any color that you choose to stain your collage material. And you can see also that I printed some of my stuff in Cibutone. This will be my focal point. This will be what I use for the main part of my collage. And then this will be some of my background. And actually I just found this picture in, I think it was like a Victoria magazine, I think it's called. I actually got this picture, and I had this picture in some of my collage material. But you can find, you can find this online. You can find, Victorian clip art online. As long as you're not using it to sell, you can use it for yourself. I don't think there's any problem with that. But some people say that, it's using some of the imagery. But I think if it's on the website and it's kind of like there for you to use, you can use it as long as you're not using it to sell your product. That's my opinion anyway. And then this is an old napkin, and this also has kind of a Victorian feel to it. And then, of course, this is some clip art and that I'm using, and also some sheet music. You can also get this at, when you go to like an estate sale or something. Sometimes they have clip art, sheet music. But of course, again, you can get this online. You can actually find, a website with sheet music on it and just print it up. And then I have this picture which I actually took when I was in Paris. It's a photograph of a close-up of a flower in Giverny, and I'll probably use that as some of my collage material. And then this is another piece of something that looks like lace, but it's aged fabric that kind of looks old. And then I also have some of this clip art of Paris also. I'm not real sure. At this point, you know, I'm never really sure what I'm going to use, but I really get a lot of things that are possible for my process before I start, because when I start, I want to get into the free flow of the creative process. So you can tell that I've got a lot of stuff that's possible, and I kind of have a theme, and the theme is kind of, you know, a little bit set, not quite set, but the theme is based on this woman here that I found, which I think is really cool because it's very vintage and very almost like Victorian. Well, not exactly Victorian, but you know, that's kind of the image I'm using. Okay, so now that's the next thing I want you to do is I want you to collect your ephemera, old photos, old, you know, collage material, whatever you choose to use in your mixed media piece. Okay? Go home. I want to tell you what we are doing. We are recycling and reusing an old book. And so what you should have done today is found an old book, or maybe you have one by now, and taking it apart by cutting the binding with your X-Acto knife. You should have actually cut it apart, and you have both the covers, you know, both covers, part of the cover, and also you should have papers that you're going to use as background. Now, when you do your collage, you know, you're not necessarily going to use it as is. You're going to actually cover it with a little bit of a gesso, or you can stain it, depending on what you're doing as far as your theme. But what I'm going to do is probably use some of the picture because I think the picture is interesting, and depending on if it depicts, you know, if it depicts a particular time of the history that I'm trying to express in my art, there might be something in here. I know during the Egyptian times they were very interested in Egypt, and Victorians, you know, they seem to be very interested in other cultures, and Egypt was one. So I might choose this one just because it has the Egyptian background. But really, at this time, you should be thinking about and generating some ideas on your theme and getting an idea for your focal point. Now, what a focal point is basically something that you're going to build your collage around. For instance, if I've chosen this as my focal point, then this will be the most important part of my piece, my art piece, and I will build around this. So there'll be some complementary things that will go along with the story, and don't think about the story so much. Allow it to just organically occur as you work, and that's how I work anyway. And of course, I found this really wonderful Victorian kind of clip art that I had in my stash, actually. And I went on Picasa and I printed it up in sepia tone because I think the color, I really didn't like the idea of it being in color. I really wanted to stay with sepia tone. Now, what I may also do is I might put a little bit of a stain on this sepia tone print, because maybe it's just a little bit too brown. But at this point, I think what we're going to do is just, or what I do and how I work is just, I collect a lot of things and then I pick and choose as I go. The creative process is a rhythm, and you should get into the rhythm, and that's why you should really prepare all of your collage material and everything that you're going to use, that you're possibly going to use in your process ahead of time. So as you can see, also I'm staining this paper and the lace and things that I might use in my collage. I will not use it all, but I might use pieces of it, so I'm staining this ahead of time. The other thing we're going to be working on as a surface is a watercolor paper, and the watercolor paper is going to be folded in 4, and then each one of the sections there's going to be something that has a similar look to it. In other words, it's going to be a series of 4 on your watercolor paper, which then can be framed as 4 different things, but based on the same theme. So if I do this, I would actually use maybe one of the ones I would put her picture on and some things, and then go from there, and then it would tell a story as the 4 pieces are. They're all going to be very similar in color, in texture, in pattern, in image, whatever, in theme. And you'll see that they all go together. So this is a really wonderful way to develop your design skills, to understand the principles of design, such as repetition and contrast, and rhythm, and all those things that goes with design in creating a good composition. So this is really basic, and I may go into this more as I go. But this is basically what we're doing. So get out your book and start taking your book apart, gathering up your things for the collage process, and I will resume tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.